That kind of pushback, the State Department today seemed to be trying to soften or further soften Ambassador Rice's statement. Listen.
We've heard a number of different things from Libya. I would simply say that what the comments that Ambassador Rice made accurately reflect our government's initial assessment.
Initial assessment. That was earlier today. This evening, we reached out again to the State Department, but we've yet to receive a reply. Now, again, the breaking news tonight, new reporting from Libya that lays out precisely what Americans there were told about potentially deadly threats and how they knew it. In a moment, we'll talk to former CIA officer Bob Baer and former Homeland Security advisor Fran Townsend, who's got new information of her own. She was actually in Libya, met with the ambassador, and has really fascinating information about what kind of a security detail he had or lack thereof, which might indicate one of the reasons he was so vulnerable in Benghazi. But first, Simon in Benghazi who broke the story. Orwell, you've been talking to eyewitnesses on the ground there. I understand one eyewitness heard an extremist talk about hitting a second location. Is that true? Have you heard that? And what does that tell you?
First of all, we do know that a second location was attacked. That second location was supposed to be the safe house where embassy personnel were evacuated to. This other eyewitness, a young man, arrived on the scene saying that he saw at least 24 bearded men, part of a known extremist militia here, he said, just on the outskirts, just outside the consulate compound. They briefly detained him because they said that he did not share their same ideology, and during the few hours that he was in detention, he says he heard them talking about the attack on the compound, celebrating it, and then talking about needing to get ready to go out and attack a second compound. All of this, of course, raising the question as to whether or not this was a pre-planned assault, as some members, senior members of the Libyan government are claiming, or whether or not it was quite simply a demonstration that turned violent.
Or you're hearing that the U.S. should have known about this, that they were warned in advance.
Libyan officials are telling us that they were talking to the U.S., telling them, warning them about this growing extremist threat, and flat out admitting that they could not control these extremist militias, actually asking the Americans for help in doing that. And I spoke to some military officials who say that just 3 days before the attack took place, they had a meeting with senior employees from the consulate itself, where they were talking about this rising threat against Western interests, and again highlighting the point that they themselves could not control these militias, these gangs that roam with pretty much pure impunity. And the ambassador himself was aware of the growing security threat as well, Anderson.
And yet, I mean, his own security details seemed small, no?
The front line of the compound, if you will, was Libyan guards, but they don't have weapons. They only have walkie-talkies. There are some armed individuals inside. Westerners, we are being told. The U.S., of course, not disclosing that kind of information, but it most certainly is not the kind of security measures that one would imagine would be put into place in a country where the U.S. is well aware and itself monitoring Al-Qaeda affiliated extremist camps in the desert not too far from the city of Benghazi itself.
And let me just be clear about it.